My name is Fatima, but everyone in this neighborhood calls me Grandma Fati. I am 81 years old, and my hair has turned as white as the snow that sometimes falls on the hills outside our town. My hands tremble when I hold a teacup, but my heart is still strong enough to remember everything. Tonight, as the rain taps softly on the window, I want to tell you a story. It is a story about love. It is a story that changed my life. And perhaps if you listen closely, it will change the way you see love too. When I was a little girl, the world was very different. There were no mobile phones, no internet, no instant pictures. We wrote letters by hand. We waited for days to hear from someone we cared about. Life moved slowly. People sat under trees in the afternoon shade. We listened to the radio at night, and we believed every word that came out of it. In that slow-moving world, love had a different shape. It wasn't something you swiped for or searched for, it came like rain after a dry season. It arrived quietly, then it changed everything. I grew up in a small fishing village by the Atlantic coast. The houses were simple, painted white with blue doors. The streets smelled of salt and sardines. My father worked as a carpenter. My mother sewed clothes for neighbors. We were not rich, but we had dignity. In the mornings, I would go down to the well with a clay jug and meet the other girls my age. We would whisper about our dreams, about life beyond the village, about who might marry whom. Sometimes we would giggle about the boys who passed by carrying fishing nets or pushing bicycles. I was shy. I liked to read, though books were rare. I loved to listen to the old women tell stories about the sea and about spirits that lived under the waves. But deep inside I had a secret wish. To be seen, to be known, to be loved for who I really was. One day, when I was 18, something happened that changed the rhythm of my days. The post office had a new worker, a young man named Ahmed. He was tall and thin, with eyes the color of dark coffee and a smile that appeared slowly, as if it was shy too. He wore a brown jacket and always carried a satchel full of letters. I noticed him at first because he was polite to everyone. He would greet the elders with respect, speak softly to the children, and never push ahead in line. He seemed different from the other young men. Every week he delivered a letter to my father from a supplier in the city. Each time he would hand it to me carefully, as if the paper was something precious. And each time our eyes would meet for a second longer than necessary. It was nothing at first, just a moment. But that moment began to live inside me. Weeks passed. My chores continued. My days looked the same, yet I found myself thinking of him. The way his fingers held the envelopes. The way his shoes left quiet marks in the sand. I told no one. In those days, a girl had to be careful with her thoughts. But my heart was beginning to wake up. Then, one morning, I opened the envelope from the city and a small folded note slipped out. My hands trembled as I opened it. The handwriting was neat, slightly tilted to the right. It said, "I see you every morning. Your smile brightens my day." That was all, just one line. But it was enough to make the world tilt. My cheeks burned, my heart raced, and for a moment I thought the sky had turned a deeper blue. I didn't know what to do. Part of me was afraid my father would find the note. Part of me wanted to run to the post office and ask him why. But another part of me, the part that had been waiting for something like this all my life, felt a quiet joy. Someone had noticed me. Someone had been brave enough to say it. That night, I could not sleep. I lay on my thin mattress, listening to the waves crashing against the rocks. The moonlight came through the window and painted a silver line across the floor. I thought about Ahmed, about his eyes, about the way he looked at me. In my imagination, I walked with him by the sea. In my imagination, he took my hand. But in reality, all I had was a note. The next morning, I wrote back. I didn't know if it was proper or safe, but my fingers moved as if guided by something larger than me. "Thank you for your kind words," I wrote. "I see you too." I folded the note and hid it inside an envelope that I gave to him under the stack of letters my father needed to send to the city. Our eyes met for a second, and in that second I felt the beginning of a secret world forming between us. Days turned into weeks. We began to exchange letters secretly. At first, just small notes, greetings, compliments, little observations about the weather. But slowly, our words grew longer. We wrote about our childhoods, our dreams, our fears. He told me he wanted to become a teacher one day. I told him I wanted to travel beyond the village, to see the big cities I'd only read about. Through those letters, we began to build a bridge between two souls. I remember one letter where he described the sea at dawn. He wrote, "The water is gray like a sleeping animal, and then the sun touches it, and it turns to gold." I remember one where I told him about my grandmother's recipe for almond cookies. These were small things, but in them was the seed of something powerful. We were learning to see the world through each other's eyes. Sometimes, when I walked to the market, I would see him across the square. We would not speak. We would just glance at each other, quickly, secretly, and keep walking. It was dangerous. In our village, a girl's reputation was fragile as glass. My father would never have allowed me to court someone without his approval. But love does not wait for permission. Love grows where it is planted. As months passed, the letters became more intimate. He told me he had lost his mother young, that he had been raised by an uncle. He told me about the nights he spent reading by candlelight because he could not afford a lamp. I told him about my fears of being married off to someone I did not love. We both wrote about freedom. We both wrote about hope. Then one day my father found one of the envelopes. I had hidden it inside a basket of clean laundry, but somehow he found it. His face turned red. His hands shook. He demanded to know who had written to me. I could not speak. I felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. He forbade me to see Ahmed, forbade me to receive letters, forbade me even to go to the post office. I cried for hours. My mother tried to calm me, but she too was bound by tradition and fear of scandal. For a time it seemed as if everything was over. But Ahmed did not give up. Somehow, he continued to send me small notes hidden in the folds of newspapers, in the seams of packages. Once he left a message under a stone near the well. His words became fewer, but each one carried more weight. "I am still here," he wrote. "I will wait." I do not know how to explain what those small notes meant to me. They were like drops of water in a desert. They told me that I was not alone, that my feelings were real, that love could survive even in silence. They taught me patience. They taught me courage. 2 years passed like this. 2 long years of waiting, of uncertainty, of stolen words. My friends married. My younger sisters grew up. But I stayed, suspended in a kind of invisible hope. Then one afternoon, just as the sun was sinking behind the hills, Ahmed appeared at our door. He was no longer the thin young man I had first met. He had grown broader in the shoulders, more determined in the eyes. He wore a clean white shirt and carried no letters. He came to speak to my father. I remember standing behind the curtain, my heart pounding. I could hear their voices. Ahmed said, "Sir, I have loved your daughter for years. I have nothing but my honesty in my work, but I ask you for her hand." My father was silent for a long time. Then he said, "Love letters do not build a life." Ahmed replied, "Then let me show you with my actions." That moment changed everything. My father saw the courage in him. He saw that this was no passing fancy. He agreed to let us marry, though with conditions. Ahmed promised to take care of me, to work hard, to build a home. When Ahmed left that night, I opened the window and looked at the stars. I felt as if the whole universe had tilted in our favor. For the first time in years, I slept without tears. Our wedding was simple. We did not have much money, but we had family, friends, and the blessing of the elders. I wore a dress my mother had sewn by hand. Ahmed looked at me as if he had been waiting his whole life for that moment. When we exchanged vows, I felt a quiet power moving through us, as if all the waiting had been a kind of preparation for this day. That is how our life together began. But that is only the beginning of the story. The years ahead would test us, shape us, and teach us lessons about love that go far beyond romance. Love, I learned, is not just about words. It is about endurance, about building something that lasts even when the winds of life blow against you. I am telling you this now, at this age, because I want you to understand that real love is possible. It is not always easy, it is not always fast, but it is real. And it can change your life in ways you cannot imagine. Tonight, as I sit here with the rain on the window and the old photographs on the table, I see the young girl I once was. I see the letters, the waiting, the courage. And I am grateful. Because without that story, without that love, I would not be the woman I am today. And this, my children, is only the first chapter. When we married, our world felt both enormous and very small. Enormous because at last we could walk in public side by side, we could speak without hiding, we could dream together openly. Small because we had almost nothing. Our home was a single room at the edge of the village, its walls made of stone, its roof patched with palm leaves and tin. But it was ours, and every evening as we closed the wooden door, I felt like the richest woman alive. Ahmed rose before dawn to work at the post office. I woke to the sound of his footsteps on the dirt floor and the smell of tea boiling on the charcoal stove. I washed clothes for neighbors and sometimes sewed to earn a little extra. We shared everything. Food, money, hopes, fears. We had no furniture except a low table, 2 chairs, and a mattress on the floor. Yet our room was full of warmth. We hung our letters on the wall like paintings. We planted a tiny garden of mint and basil outside the door. We painted our names together on the inside of the door, as if to say, this is our beginning. In those first years, I learned what love looks like in the daylight. It is not the flutter of secret notes, though those are beautiful. It is the hand that lifts the heavy pot from the fire when you are tired. It is the shoulder you lean on when your mother falls sick. It is the silence you share when you have no words but still feel understood. Love is the daily work of kindness. Ahmed showed me patience. He listened to my worries. When my father came to visit, stiff and doubtful, Ahmed treated him with respect and quiet dignity. Slowly, my father softened. My mother, too, began to smile more when she saw us. They could see we were building something real. Our first big challenge came with money. The post office paid little, and prices were rising. Some nights we ate only bread and olives. Yet Ahmed always found a way to bring me something small. A fig from a tree, a seashell from the shore, a scrap of cloth in a color I liked. These gifts were not expensive, but they told me, I see you. I remember you. I choose you. I remember one rainy night when the roof began to leak. We had only one pot to catch the water. Ahmed took off his jacket and held it above me until the storm passed. The next morning, soaked and tired, he still went to work. That is love too. The quiet sacrifices that no one else sees. When our first child was born, a daughter we named Layla, our world shifted again. I was 19, barely out of girlhood myself. The birth was hard. There was no hospital, only a midwife and my mother. But when I held that tiny body against my chest, I felt a river of strength I had never known. Ahmed held us both and whispered, we are 3 now. We are a family. Having a child taught us new kinds of love. We slept less, worried more. We learned to stretch money like dough, thin but nourishing. I learned to sing lullabies at midnight. Ahmed learned to rock a baby to sleep while reading reports for the post office by candlelight. We grew up together. The years that followed were not easy. Drought came one summer, and fish became scarce. My father fell ill and we sent money we did not have. Ahmed began tutoring children in the evenings to earn extra coins. I took in sewing from 3 neighboring villages. We often ate after midnight because that was when we finally finished working. But through it all we kept a ritual. Every Sunday we would walk to the cliffs and sit watching the sea, just as we had imagined in our letters. We would hold hands and say nothing. The sea reminded us that life is bigger than our struggles, that time moves, that storms pass. One winter, Ahmed caught pneumonia. For weeks he lay in our bed, feverish and coughing. I fed him broth with a wooden spoon, wiped his forehead with cloth soaked in mint water, prayed over him when the fever raged. Those nights were long and frightening. I thought of all the years we had waited for each other, all the letters, all the dreams, and I whispered to him, stay with me. We are not done yet. Slowly, he recovered. And when he was strong enough to walk again, he held my face in his hands and said, we survived another test. As Leela grew, she began to ask about our past. Mama, she would say, how did you and Papa meet? And I would tell her a softened version of the story, leaving out the pain and focusing on the hope. I wanted her to know that love is possible, but also that it takes courage. In time we had another child, a boy we named Samir. Our family doubled in size and so did our work. We moved to a slightly larger house with 2 rooms and a real roof. Ahmed was promoted at the post office. We were still poor by many standards, but to us it felt like abundance. Those were the years of building. We built not just a home but a rhythm, a set of values. We taught our children to greet elders respectfully, to tell the truth, to work hard, to share what little they had. We also taught them joy, how to sing on market day, how to dance at weddings, how to find beauty in simple things. We did not have toys, but we had stories. Every night before bed I told them one. Sometimes about the sea, sometimes about our ancestors, sometimes about the day Ahmed first handed me a letter. The children listened with wide eyes. They did not know that these stories were also reminders to myself of how far we had come. Love in those days was a kind of weaving. Each act of care was a thread. Each sacrifice, a knot. Each shared laugh, a color. We wove a tapestry that was not always even or perfect, but it was ours, and it kept us warm. I would like to tell you that life then became easy, that our struggles ended. But life does not work that way. New challenges came, larger ones. There were political changes in the country. Prices rose again. Floods destroyed part of the village. And in the middle of it all, Ahmed received an opportunity, a chance to study for a higher position in the city. It was a chance at a better life, but it meant leaving the village for a time. We had to decide, stay in the safety of what we knew or take a risk for the future. I remember the night we talked about it. The children were asleep. We sat at the table in the dim light of a single lamp. Ahmed said, "If I pass this exam, I can get a better job. But I will have to be away for some months." I felt a tightness in my chest. We had been apart before, but never as husband and wife, never with children. I said, "I am afraid." He took my hand and said, "So am I, but we have survived worse. And everything I do is for you and the children." In the end, we decided he would go. I would stay with the children and keep our small world running. It was hard. The first nights without him were a kind of echo. I would reach for his side of the bed and find only a cool sheet. The children asked where he was, and I told them he was studying to build us a better future. We wrote letters again, long, heartfelt ones, just like before. In a way, it felt like returning to the beginning of our love. Only now the stakes were higher and the world more complex. During those months, I learned again what it means to stand alone but connected. I learned to manage money, to fix a leaking roof, to comfort children when they miss their father. I learned that love can stretch across distance, that trust is a kind of invisible bridge. Ahmed passed his exam. He came home with a certificate, a new suit, and eyes that were both tired and shining. We hugged for a long time. The children clung to his legs. We were together again, stronger than before. Looking back now, I see that our first years together were a kind of apprenticeship in love. We learned not only how to cherish each other, but how to endure together. We learned that love is not a constant state of excitement, but a steady flame you protect from the wind. It flickers sometimes, it dims. But if you shield it with your hands and feed it with small acts of care, it keeps burning. I'm telling you this because when you are young, you think love is only the moment your heart races. That is a beautiful part, but it is only the beginning. Real love is everything that comes after. The building, the waiting, the forgiving, the trying again. That is where the miracle happens. That is where you discover who you really are. And so, children, as you sit here listening to my old voice, remember, love is a journey, not a single event. It is made of 1,000 days, 1,000 gestures, 1,000 choices. The letters may fade. The photographs may curl at the edges, but the memory of those choices stays inside you like a quiet strength. That strength is what carried me and Ahmed through the years you will soon hear about. My dear ones, thank you for sitting with me tonight and letting me open my heart. These memories are precious, like old photographs you keep in a wooden box. Each one carries a piece of the love that shaped me. If you felt even a spark of that love while listening, know that it was meant for you too. Before you go, do something small for someone you love. A kind word, a smile, a little patience. Those are the threads that weave a life. And if you'd like to walk with me further down this road of memories, stay close. There is so much more to tell, and the next part of my story is waiting just around the corner. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the little bell so you'll know when the next chapter appears. Your support lets this old grandmother keep telling her tales. Until then, I send you all my blessings, my prayers, and my love. See you soon, in the next part of my story.